I bought a compound, where it had two entrances, gated entrances, one in the front, one in the back, 10,000 square feet, guest house, 2.5 acres. It was incredible. I mean, it was not incredible from a standpoint of look at me, but it was incredible from the standpoint of, I remember when I bought that house, I thought I am the biggest deal on the face of the earth. And
Right.
I just thought I'd arrived. And again, I go back to the analogy of that banana. A month later, all I really had was a big goddamn house with a whole bunch of lonely people in it.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of I Love Being Sober. My name's Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO of Camelback Recovery here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people on their path to recovery. We started this show because there's so much misinformation about addiction treatment, mental illness, and recovery in general. There's so much more to recovery than just going to inpatient treatment, seeing a therapist, and going to 12-step meetings. All of those things are important, and AA saved my life. However, to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, there's a lot more to it than just stopping the drinking, stopping the drugs, stopping the sex addiction, or stopping any addictive behavior for that matter. To live a new life, a person needs new, healthy lifestyle habits, amongst many other things. Typically, this includes new eating habits, new sleeping habits, new exercise habits, new hobbies, new interests, new friends. Self-care becomes a priority, and the list goes on. Those are the types of things that we talk about on this show. Today, I'm here with Walter Clarke, and we're going to talk about money as it relates to a person in recovery. Walter was sober at 24 years old, and he's a man in long-term recovery. He spent 18 years as a financial educator, teaching at many of the prestigious universities like UC Berkeley, UCLA, ASU, DePaul, University of San Diego, UC Santa Cruz, and UC Davis. In 2003, he started his own investment firm and has experience chasing money, chasing 6 figures, then chasing 7 figures, then chasing 8 figures. So he's a great person to talk to when it comes to money and chasing money and the role of money for a person that's trying to get clean and sober and trying to live a clean life. He's committed to communicating and teaching the many lessons he and others have learned in the quest for happiness, keeping wealth without losing oneself or the people they care about. The title of today's show is Spiritual Money, and we're going to talk about the role of money for people in recovery. Walter, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. Again, this is my second stint on your podcast. I think you do an amazing job, and money and spirituality and kind of dear to my heart. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So, give me the quick version of your upbringing and how you got sober and why you got sober.
I got sober young. You mentioned I got sober at 24. I actually got sober at 22. My path, in recovery was my dad was recovering. I had watched him. I wasn't anything that was ever for me planned. I didn't want to be sober. I didn't want to ever have to not drink. But really my life came apart very early on. And so I know I needed to do something, but as we kind of look at this particular topic, recovery and money and all those things, I remember vividly, getting sober at 22, how do you have fun? How do you be successful? How do you do all these things early in sobriety? And what is really my life going to be like if I truly am a spiritual being? And so I'm Catholic, and a couple things that I were really forefront of my mind early on. There's a biblical phrase that says it's easier for a the rich man to enter the gates of heaven than for a camel to fit through an eye of a needle. And, I might have got that backwards, but it really kind of dignifies for me. What I captured out of that is money and spirituality do not go hand in hand. Like, you can't have money and be spiritual. And so that was very problematic for me early on in my sobriety, because I wanted to be, I wanted to be successful. So that was really kind of my path. And so I thought money was a taboo inside of, spirituality. And so that's really was challenging in the beginning.
And what gives you the right to claim you are an expert on spiritual money and building wealth?
Well, I don't know that I'm an expert. I have a tremendous amount of experience. I remember early in my sobriety, if I said, if I made six figures, that would be an amount of money that would sort of be the standard of being successful. And I'll never forget when I crossed that threshold and I was there, I thought, that's not as much money as I thought it would be. And so, and then when I made seven figures, that wasn't as much money as I thought it would be. It's interesting how the line moves. And so I've been a financial educator for 20 years, and I've been around almost every level of wealth that you can imagine. And as a result of that, I've watched and seen a lot of things. I've seen it personally, and I've seen it from people that I've been around at literally every level. So what do I capture from that is just a lot of experience around the meaning of money, the pursuit of money, what I call healthy money versus unhealthy money, problem money people versus not problem money people. Just like drugs and alcohol, or with alcohol in general, some people have a very healthy relationship with alcohol. I didn't. And so I needed to get help relative to money issues in my life, even though I was a financial educator. It's interesting.
Yeah. Hold on. What's the difference between healthy money and unhealthy money?
Great question. So very similar to the drink. I think that for me, I pursued money because of what I thought money could do for me. Money as a thing is a status. What money could give to me, what money meant to me, what money could buy, what possessions I could have. Money was a measurement of who I was as a person, what kind of car I drove, what kind of house I lived in. It was external. So I chased money because money was a vehicle that made me feel better. So the more money I had, the more shit I bought. Mm-hmm. And the bigger my life got. But what I now recognize about, and anybody can ask themselves this question, because anytime you get an adrenaline rush by the new thing, whether it's a new outfit, a new dress, a new car, a new house, a new anything, there's like a dopamine hit from it. But the problem with that dopamine hit is it doesn't last. Even the new car. I always say in my talks about money and my talks about possessions, it's like a banana. It has a shelf life of about 2 weeks. And then it gets brown and it rottens, and whatever you have bought just gets stale. It doesn't have the effect, doesn't have the long-term effect that you're looking for. So that in itself is what I believe is a long-term unhealthy relationship with money. And that's the kind of relationship I had with money, because I wasn't okay and inside. And so I needed something external to make me feel better. And so you're on this constant treadmill of more stuff, more things, because you get something, you feel good, but then it evaporates and you got to get something else to fill the hole. And that treadmill never ends. It never stops. Where I'll never forget, I was teaching a class up in San Francisco. And I was teaching at UC Berkeley, and I had this kid. He was a kid, and he was very, very early employee at Google. And he had one of the healthiest relationship to money I've ever seen. I've learned so much from him. As money was not a thing to him. It meant something completely different than what it meant to me. money for him was a byproduct of the amount of service and impact that he provided in whatever it is that he was doing. And so it just was a measurement of his value inside Google, his value inside his community. And it was just a thing. Didn't make him feel better. It was just a measurement of the game. And so I think for me, people that pursue money because it's a vehicle for them to feel better never get there. And others that look at money as just a measurement of how much service and value they provide have a really healthy view of it. So to me, that's the kind of the two roads. And I've watched people go down both roads, and I've watched myself go down both of them.
Right. Well, it's kind of like when you buy something new, it's that dopamine, that's that dopamine hit. You get a rush. You buy a new house, you buy a new outfit, you buy a new car, and like you said, it only lasts so long. And it's just like a drink or a drug. You need more. You always need more, right? You need more once you crash. And if you're chasing money to feel good, I think that's probably why. And let me know if you agree. I think what was the study where people that make people basically need to make enough money to survive and pay their bills, and making more money than the amount of money that they need to pay their bills and live and be somewhat comfortable, it doesn't create more happiness. Do you know what study I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it's pretty much in line with that.
100%. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it as money is not the thing that generates the happiness. Money is in itself. And what's frustrating is we are in a culture of Madison Avenue, and you look at all these different speakers that are running around all over the place, and they're showing themselves on private jets and big homes and these big lives, as if that's at the end of the day what will make you happy. And it absolutely doesn't. And people look at that as a measurement of success. I have a Lamborghini, I've got a plane, I've got a big house, I'm on these big vacations, but you don't know what's behind that. Are they living that lifestyle because of leverage and loans? And are they overextended? Or are they living that life because they've generated and they understand this financial equation called, here's how much money I bring in, here's how much money I spend. And the measurement of financial health is called free cash flow. How much free cash flow do you have at the end of every month? And what was incredible for me is I always thought I could out earn my financial troubles, meaning that if I just made more money, eventually I would earn so much that I would be in a great financial position. But what happened for me is my spending continued to match my income. It's like, if there's 5 drinks on the table, I'm going to drink 5 drinks. If there's 10 drinks, I'm going to drink 10 drinks. And I thought, wait a minute, 6 figures? Oh my God, you can't spend 6 figures, right?
Right.
Until I was making 7 figures and I had no money. It's crazy, but holy cow, it happens. It's really easy to spend money. And it's really easy to walk in the car dealership and get a loan and justify these kind of behaviors in your head. There's always a good reason why. Everybody needs a 10,000 square foot house. Oh, absolutely.
Of course. And I think you and I both know that happiness comes as a result of happiness is fulfillment. That's how we're happy. And people think that they're going to be happier by buying the big 10,000 square foot house or the new car. And really the way that and this is what I'm gathering from what you just said, was people, they're fulfilled by creating value. If I create more value, if I'm of service and I get compensated for that service, then that's a healthy relationship with money, as opposed to how can I win the lottery?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the basic elements of the program, we basically are really doing one thing. We're shifting from a self-centered world to an other-centered world. Okay, so we move in the world of addiction, it's all about us.
Mm-hmm.
And in the world of the program of spirituality, it's all about you. And money's the same thing. I made the huge mistake of getting sober and go, hey, I'm sober and I'm going to pursue money in a very selfish way. So everything I did and how I looked at the world was, how much money can I make off of this? What's in it for me?
Where did that thinking come from?
My background is I grew up in a very competitive environment. I grew up as an athlete. I grew up in winning is everything. So that mentality of performance and a goal and a trophy was really what drove me. So I was very external all of my life. I got acclimates when I won a race. When I lost the race, I didn't get acclimates. And I'm like, what is up with that? How come these people don't know me? How come they don't like me? Because I lost the race. So very quickly, I realized that my whole world evolved around performance and looking good. And so money ties right into that. Whether you're winning the race, whether you're winning the money game, it's everywhere. The guy that shows up in the best car and has the biggest house and the nicest girlfriend and all that, he's the guy that everybody looks at and say, I want to be that guy. But at the end of the day, if you constantly feed your world with that, it's a dead end street. It's like the drug that never ends. It's a thirst. It's an appetite. And I've watched it everywhere. That's why actors and celebrities commit suicide at a very high rate, because they have fame, they have fortune, and it's not enough. They're still empty. Because they wake up one day and they have everything that they ever thought they wanted, and they're still miserable because they haven't fixed whatever it is inside that is the hole, is the empty. And for all of us, it's that spiritual connection. It's the equation of others. It's the equation of, if I'm of service to you, Tim, if I'm of service to my fellow man in my business, in my family, that's actually the dynamic that creates that joy in my life. Not the money's a byproduct of that action. And so that's a very, very different way to look at all this stuff.
When did you realize that you had an unhealthy relationship with money?
Wow. I mean, that's like the drinking addiction. I think I had it a lot longer than when I realized I did.
Right.
When I look back, you can ask your question. You can ask yourself some interesting questions about money. And for me, I was always on the money edge. And the other thing about that is part of this addiction is when you're on the money train and you're spending more than you make, meaning that your financial life is chaotic, meaning you're on the edge, you're on the financial edge. There's something wrong with that. That is an addictive behavior. It's like the adrenaline rush of being on the edge. It's like a thrill ride. Like, am I going to make enough money this month? Am I going to be able to meet my credit cards? Am I going to be able to pay that bill? Or you go and you buy something and you put it on a credit card and you're like, holy shit, should I do that or not? Am I going to be able to make that payment at the end of the month? But I want that whatever. I want that dress. I want that trip. I want to go to Indonesia. I want to have that new Mercedes. I want it, whatever it is that happens. So it's like one of those things, Tim, you got to get beaten down. I lost my firm in 2012. I literally got obliterated because I made some poor decisions relative to financial pressure. And so as a result, I was like in the gutter. And I was a guy that lost my firm, was making 7 figures. And so that was the gut check for me. I had to go down the elevator to the bottom of the financial ruin to wake up and go, holy shit, maybe we ought to look at this stuff. I'm the financial educator teaching classes at, like you mentioned, UCLA, UC Berkeley, to millionaires, centimillionaires, billionaires. I had all walks of life in my class, and here I was, the cobbler's kids don't have any shoes. Crazy stuff. I mean, I had to get honest, and we all have different levels of when we get there. And so for anybody listening to the podcast, what is your relationship with money? And does money provide stress? Do you have the illusion that if I just made more money, I'd be okay? Or if I got a better job, it'd be okay? No, I mean, who buys lottery tickets? Wealthy people don't buy lottery tickets. Mm-hmm. Homeless people buy lottery tickets. And right. So they're saying I'm homeless and I don't have money, but yet they have enough money to buy lottery tickets. So the whole financial equation is kind of effed up for people, and people got to get honest about, how much money they make, what they spend, and how much they have left over, because there's a dynamic that is at play here around needs and wants and desires and saying no to yourself and having discipline. It's like fitness. You have an overweight person that just doesn't want to go to the gym. So they gotta take a health assessment and see how healthy they are, and then go to somebody that's a financial coach and say, I need help.
What are some of the questions that someone can ask themselves to determine whether or not they have a healthy relationship with money? I mean, how much money do I spend more money than I make, right? And another thing, actually, I just wanted to mention this, and you told me this before, is that when people are making money, they think they're always going to make money. And that's not always the case. Just because I'm making money today doesn't mean I'm going to make money tomorrow. And so I'm making money today, so I feel good about throwing something on my credit card. But then guess what? Tides change, and maybe I don't make as much money next month or the month after or whatever, and then I'm in the hole. And I think a lot of people end up making that type of decision.
I agree. That the question about questions is it's a relatively simple financial assessment. You look at your job, you look at how much money you make. And then two, you look at what you spend. And then when you look at what you spend, you divide your expenditures up into two categories. One is your fixed expenses. Those are all the things that you have to pay. Your loans, your payments, just they're the fixed. And then there's your variable expenses, and it's lifestyle, it's clothing, it's trips, it's entertainment, it's food. And you kind of look at those relationships. And then the third is how much you have left over. And, if you're always hand to mouth and there's never enough money and you're always on the emotional edge at the end of the month, you got to look at that. And you got to go, what the fuck am I doing? And then you got to go back and you got to look at your fixed and like, how much of your life is financed? And so I talk a lot about this in programs and stuff. Is I tell people, never finance a depreciating asset. Ever. Never put a depreciating asset on loan terms, payment. They go, what is that? What's a depreciating asset? And it's any asset that when you buy it, it immediately goes down in value. That's it. It's a car. It's an outfit. Think about the dress that you buy wherever, Nordstrom's, Neiman Marcus, the department store. You got to have it. It's $500, $1,000, $2,000. You can buy that same outfit at my sister's closet 6 months from now for $100. It goes down in value. So you never finance something that goes down in value. You finance things, smart leverage, smart loans are things that go up in value, homes, assets. So people don't really understand, especially kids, they really don't understand that distinct difference between assets that go down in value versus assets that go up in value, and that you've got to buy assets. Sharon Lechter is such a great advocate of this. Buy assets. Assets are sexy. Assets are sexy. And, but that's not what sells. That's not what gets followers. That's not what gets viewers. If you look at, the gurus out there, they're talking about stuff. They're showing you bright, shiny cars. They're showing you great trips. They're showing you great outfits. They're showing you big houses. And it's like, holy cow. So it's really a simple assessment. Do you have free cash flow? Do you have money left over? And what do you do with that? Are you buying assets that generate return? So therefore, you can get an alternate source of income. That's the whole financial freedom equation. Can you wake up? Money is divided into two categories: earned income, where you trade time for money, versus passive income, where you wake up and it just shows up in your mailbox. And when you have enough passive income to meet your obligations, you're free. So it's not an amount of money. What it is it's an amount of money that generates passive income to where you can call in sick because you got mailbox money. And so the higher you're spending, the more money you need. The lower you're spending is the less money you need. So people ask me, what do you need to be wealthy? Is it 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million? All depends on how much you spend. I've seen people at $1 million that are very wealthy. I've seen others at 50 million that are poor. And I get criticized for that because you're like, how can you have 50 million and be poor? Because you got a lot of shit.
Right.
And you got a lot of loans and you got a lot of leverage. I mean, think about the bankruptcies that we've seen of famous people that went into bankruptcy and they had 50 million of assets, but they had $200 million in debt. And if you're making $1 million a year, $2 million a year, $5 million a year, people will lend you a lot of money. They will lend you a lot of money. You can buy tens of millions of dollars worth of shit because you make good income. But when that income stops, you get injured as an athlete, you don't get the next movie deal, you get fired as the CEO, there's a market downturn, you're in trouble.
So what does a person do when they discover that they have an unhealthy relationship with money? What's the next step?
Well, that's the first step. I mean, that is absolutely
okay. That's the first step. So what's the next step after that? They realize, okay, I have a bad relation. And I think that people intuitively know. I mean, if you're stressed out at the end of every single month and you're kind of looking at your bank account and you're having to shuffle money around and you're trying to figure out, okay, how much money am I going to pay on this credit card? How much am I going to pay on this credit card? Oh, don't forget my car payment. If that's your line of thinking, you probably have an unhealthy relationship with money. So what do they do next? What did you do when you discovered and you were ready to do something about it? I mean, what happened with you?
Whether it's sex, pills, drugs, money, it's the same formula. It's the same formula inside the steps. And it's the same formula. You got to get with somebody that I believe is in a 12-step program that is successful and that has challenged these money issues. You got to be able to relate to somebody that's been there. And so, really that's what I did. My sponsor is uber successful and has a very healthy relationship with money. So he helped me quite a bit. And you got to get really honest. It's really hard to get honest with money. It's really hard because it's not at the forefront of like a drug addiction and an alcohol addiction. You drink, you end up in the gutter. And so you can exist for a really, really long period of time in an unhealthy money addiction, but it'll show up in your life in very different ways. And it'll be very unhealthy in it'll create health problems because the stress associated with unhealthy money issues manifests itself in a lot of different ways. So it's really, it's breaking it down. It's the first step. It's the inventory. It's turning it over to God. It's getting with somebody else that's not you, that understands the money equation and that can help you get honest. And then it's about accountability. Like for me, it was like when I had money in my account, it was like I was like twitching. It's like, oh, man, what can I buy? You know what I'm saying? It was like, holy shit. And then I wouldn't tell anybody. You know, I got extra money. I wouldn't tell anybody. And so my fiance is incredible. I mean, she has really, really helped me because she's really helped to slow me down. And so it's about crafting new behaviors. It's about crafting new methods. It's about crafting a different view and being accountable and having somebody there. So when you go outside and you do something stupid, then you can take corrective measures. It's an ongoing, it's not a natural for guys like me and people that have an unhealthy relationship with money. It is not a natural thing for me to be responsible with money. So I have to work at it. I don't have a healthy relationship with alcohol and drugs. And so I have to go to 12-step programs to remind me what is healthy. But it's really important, and people need to understand in the addiction recovery that you drop the alcohol and the drugs, that sex is right around the corner. Gambling is right around the corner, and money's right around the corner. The problem with money is everybody can pat you on the back and you can look like you got a great life, but underneath the covers, you really don't, because you can have this image that you got your shit together, but you really don't. You've got this stressful life of like, how can I had coffee with a good buddy of mine this morning, and he talked about a really big guy in town, a private equity guy that just committed suicide. And they're kind of gonna, I'll bet you any money that when they start peeling back the curtain of that guy's life, he had this like rock star status life, but underneath the cover is probably overly levered. And something happened in his world where his world started coming apart, and he had no ability to raise his hand and say, I need help. And he just offed himself as a way out. And, you know, there was a very famous, not famous, but a high profile case back in 2008, guy by the name of Scott Cole. And he was a big money real estate lender in town that committed suicide because he got over levered and his whole empire was going to come down. So instead of like, again, raising hand, capitulating, I got a problem and looking for help, the financial guys, because there's so much ego and arrogance wrapped up in who they are, that for them to fall down the financial ladder is something that they can't even fathom. And so suicide is an option. For me, thank God, my ego wasn't big enough to where when I got crushed, it was like, okay, great. It's just geography. You know, I'll figure it out. So I was blessed in that respect, but yeah, I mean, it's devastating. So you just got to get humble and get with somebody that's been there. Just like it's the premise of the steps, Tim, and the fellowship and the program, but sex and money are these two things that we just don't talk a lot about. You know what I'm saying? And I just applaud you for having me on, because I was on the sex deal 6-9 months ago. Now I'm on the money deal. And it's those things that we just don't talk about are the things that are just going to kill us.
Yeah, there's no discussion of, I mean, the only discussion of money is most people owe financial amends when they get sober. So they need to figure out how to pay people back. But as far as the relationship with money and chasing 6 figures and chasing 7 figures, that's not talked about at all.
No, I agree. And, you know, people sometimes in the fellowship, oh, I can't talk about money. Oh, I don't want to know what you do. And we're just going to be here for sobriety. It's total bullshit. You know, and I'm one of those guys that I sincerely believe that alcohol was not my problem. Alcohol was my solution. I drank to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of alcohol, that solution, it magnified itself. It made my problem worse. So once I eliminate alcohol, I'm a pleasure seeker. So I'm going to seek pleasure in either spiritual pleasure, service pleasure, money pleasure, sex pleasure. It's just that's who we are. And it is not readily obvious to us initially that a spiritual life produces what we're looking for. It wasn't for me. I thought I needed a nice girlfriend and a lot of money. Nice girlfriend, a lot of money. And I needed to go to the swanky places and I needed to do all this stuff that is considered to be successful. And that would make me happy. And it just didn't.
And how did you feel when you finally got to that point where you had the money, you had the house, you had the girl, you had the car? And how did you feel at that point?
Oh, it's such a great, so my life at that point was a wife. It was 3 kids. It was I didn't buy just a house. I bought a compound, where it had 2 entrances, gated entrances, one in the front, one in the back. 10,000 square feet, guest house, 2.5 acres. It was incredible. I mean, it was not incredible from a standpoint of look at me, but it was incredible from the standpoint of, I remember when I bought that house, I thought I am the biggest deal on the face of the earth. And
Right.
I just thought I'd arrived. And again, I go back to the analogy of that banana.
Mm-hmm.
A month later, all I really had was a big goddamn house with a whole bunch of lonely people in it. And
Mm-hmm.
myself was right at the center of that. And I remember my my wife at the time was getting confirmed. And we had this big celebration for that, which was very cool for her. And we had all these priests over, and I'm Catholic. And I just remember they're walking around, and anytime anybody would walk around my house, they would talk about what an amazing person I was in this house. And I'm like, you have no idea of the emptiness that's going on in me right now. And I just remember that day very vividly. This one priest was like, oh my God, this is spectacular. We should have weddings here. And I just was like, oh my God, I wanted to figure out how to unwind this life that I was, really in. So it's just, you never get there. You never get there. And then, I know other people that have had bigger houses and multiple houses and planes and boats. And it's the same thing. It's really the same thing, that if you're not okay on the inside. And the other thing too is that I also don't agree with is people kind of talk about, well, I don't need money. Those people that make all that money, they're whatever. And I don't believe you got to be poor to be spiritual. I think that's totally backwards, because in my world today, money is a byproduct of the amount of service I provide. So I really look at everything like, how can I add value to your equation in my current business and current relationships? How can I add value in the people that I hang out with? Like, how can I help you? And so it's a very different mindset, because you look at service first and then you go, you know what, the money will take care of itself. And it'll just come if I really do the right thing and I'm of service. Where before I would look at a relationship and go, wow, that's X amount of dollars to me. I looked at money first and service second. Now I look at service first and money second. So as a result is now I told the guy today, I said, my overhead is a fraction of where it was before, and it's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
My free cash flow is high. My overhead is low. I'm never going back to high income, high overhead. Holy shit. That is a recipe for disaster. And it operates at every level, every level. And that's the challenge when we look at this world, is you may look at somebody and go, oh my God, they got such a great life. And I want to ask him, I want to walk up to the guy in the Lamborghini and ask him, well, did you lease that or did you buy it? Did you finance it? Did you lease it or buy it? And that's not the answer I'm looking for. The answer I'm looking for is he should buy it for cash. Because if he's wealthy enough to own an expensive car, he better not finance it. Because that tells me he's extended.
Mm-hmm.
Because smart people do not finance cars.
Is there a question that you've wanted to be asked or that you'd like me to ask you? And I mean, we're coming up to the end of the interview here. So is there a question that I've missed, a question that you wanted me to ask that I didn't ask today?
It's a simple equation, Tim. It's people got to get educated financially. They got to roll up their sleeves like anything else. There's two sides to the equation. There's the income side and the expense side. If you're not making enough income, go get educated. We're in an incredible time where you can go on the internet and learn a new skill and up your earning capacity. So I don't buy that I'm stuck economically, because the way the internet and the world and how you can learn and be mentored is absolutely wide open. People like to be a victim. They like to be stuck, because then I can go, it's your problem, Tim. It's my boss's fault. It's my upbringing. I'm not educated. Bullshit. Take responsibility for where you're at, and then take responsibilities for controlling you. The person, anybody listening to this podcast, the person that you have to control in order to be financially successful and have financial freedom is yourself. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, do you have the ability to say no to you? And once you get a handle on that and you get people around you that you can be accountable to, and you can learn this money game. The money game is not hard. I've taught the money game for 20 years. It's super simple. People make it complicated. Oh, I don't understand that, or I don't. It's a simple equation. There's a ton of stuff out there, really on the internet. But once you understand the game, and you understand revenue and expenses, and you understand controls, personal controls, and the ability to say no to yourself. I always want new shit.
Yeah,
I do. But I don't buy new shit because I want money left over. I want freedom. If I got a problem, I want to be able to solve it because I have the money to do it. I don't want to always be on the financial edge. So my life has to be perfect. If there's an economic downturn, I remember when we went through the 08 and 09 downturn, I was so leveraged and I had so many loans and so many payments. I had to make X amount of dollars a month just to break even. And when the downturn happened, I was screwed. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, heading into COVID, and all the COVID stuff happened and all the uncertainty, I was not levered. I had no debt. I had low overhead and I had money in the bank. It was still scary, but I had a completely different view. I had a completely different experience in the different economic environments that we were in. And so that equation is just got to be hammered in.
I think, like you, Yeah, I like that. I like that you say people do need to learn how to be responsible with money. And my story is, I mean, I'm similar to you in that, when the big real estate downturn in '08, '09, it's like I went through bankruptcy, divorce, my real estate license went away, like a bunch of stuff happened to me, and it was a freaking nightmare. And then when COVID hit, similar to you, I I had the money, I had the resources to deal with it, and I learned how to handle my money. I learned how to not overspend. And the other thing that I like that you said is surrounding yourself with people, and that's what I did. I surrounded myself with people that had a healthy relationship with money, which helped me. And so I think that's important to be around people that make good decisions financially, because we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And that's in every area. That's been my experience.
And financial coaches they're invaluable, because what's great about a financial coach is they're not you. They're not buying the new car, the night outfit. I recently was hired by a guy, and he's made and lost 100 million twice.
Okay.
Now he's back from the downturn. He's like, I don't want to go through that treadmill again. And you know me better than anything. And my role with him is I got to put guardrails around him, because he suffers from this disease called optimism.
Right.
And there's always an opportunity to make more, but at what cost? How many chips do we put on the table? And one of the things that I really try to help educate people on is, once you make it, the goal is not to lose it. And Shaquille O'Neal has a great line. He said, are you smart enough to keep the money that you've made? And always remember this: the skill set that you needed to make money is a different skill set than keeping your wealth. So making wealth is one skill set. Maintaining and keeping your wealth are very different. And so it's, you can make money on one hand, but how do you keep it and preserve it and build it and all of that on the other? And so you take an assessment and an inventory and really look at, are you good at this? And if you're not, then seek out people that can help you.
Awesome. Walter, where can people find you, or how can they find you if they want to find out more about you and what it is that you do?
You have all my contact info, so you can, I can reach out to you and they can provide that. There's all kinds of different resources. Myself as a firm has all kinds of learning tools. We're actually launching an online financial course. I recorded 21 hours worth of financial with 35 different speakers from all walks of life. So really super committed to financial literacy, not only for people that come into money, but for kids. What's sad is there's very few, resources for kids. Kids get inundated with Madison Avenue. Buy this, buy that. Athletes, same thing. They get the first contract and they immediately go out and buy a house, a Mercedes, and stuff for their boys. And it's just all a complete mistake. So contact you.
What's your website?
It's familycfo.net, familycfo.net. So
okay. Thanks so much for your time, Walter, and everybody. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great rest of your day.